Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of the team of medical writers here at the agency, and one of our tasks is to write EPAR summaries, and one of your tasks is to review them for us. So I'm here to talk a little bit about what they are and what you have to do with them. So what is an EPAR summary? Well, it's a thing that looks a little bit like this. Every centrally authorized medicine, and you'll have heard a lot about centrally authorized medicines so far today, has its own page on the EMA website. And an EPAR summary is the first thing you see when you go to that page. It's the thing that forms the text of that first page. And if I just quickly show, this is our website. And at the top of our website, there's a box that says search for medicines, and you can, in fact, put in a medicine name. And if you're lucky, you get this page that I referred to, which shows you the EPAR summary in a condensed form, which can be expanded to give you information. My colleague, Juan Garcia, is going to talk to you a bit later on about how to search our website, which is sometimes a bit of a task, but that's just a quick show. That's where the EPAR summary is to be found. So that didn't really answer the question, what is an EPAR summary? Well, as the name suggests, it's a summary of an EPAR. And an EPAR is the European Public Assessment Report, which is basically a collection of documents, publicly available documents, about the medicine and the way it was assessed. And those documents include the product information, which is the SMPC, which is for healthcare professionals mainly, and the package leaflet for patient leaflet, which you've just heard discussed, and also assessment reports by the Committee for Human Medicinal Products, which explain how they came to license the medicine. And the EPAR summary is basically a short, public-friendly version that summarizes the information in those documents, explaining the medicine, how it came to be approved. Now, every EPAR, every centrally authorized medicine, is required to have this summary by law, although the law doesn't actually specify exactly what the summary should contain. So we have to work that out with your aid over some time. And it is not, and I must stress this, a replacement for the product information. If you want the full details, you must always go to the product information. This is just a summary. It only contains high-level details. And because medicines have this life cycle where changes happen, new safety information comes, new indications come, the EPAR summary is a living document which is constantly updated as the medicine changes. The content of an EPAR summary is based on a template which we established by extensive consultation with patient and consumer groups and healthcare professionals. And we've revised that content as time has gone by, partly based on the feedback we've received from you. It has a series of set sections. The first of those covers what the medicine is and what it's used for, i.e. its licensed indications. The second briefly discusses the way it's used, the way it's given, what its form is, and possibly some details of the dosing, but not full details. Again, you have to go to the product information for those. We have a summary in what we hope is public-friendly language of the way the medicine works, what its mechanism of action is. And we discuss the studies, the main studies that were used in its licensing and what the benefits were that were seen in those studies. And because the licensing of medicine is about the balance of benefit and risk, we also have a section on what the risks are. This will give you the most common side effects and possibly the most serious ones, and also the conditions that prevent the medicine from being used, the contraindications. And then we have basically a summary of the committee's reasons for approving the medicine, how they judged that balance of benefit and risk. And finally, because all medicines now have to have this risk management plan, which talks about how to manage those risks, we have a brief summary of those. Normally, that's just saying that the benefits and risks are discussed, the risks are discussed in the product information. But for some medicines, where there are particular measures that have to be taken, for example, in those that affect the unborn child, there may be special requirements for contraception, for example. Where there are exceptional measures that need to be taken to ensure that a medicine is used safely, those will be discussed in that section. And everything in an EPAR summary, as I said, is based on the product information and the assessment report. So we take the SMPC, we take the assessment report, and we try to distill what is in there into something very short and relatively easily understandable. In doing that, we have internal guidance on how to write these, and we keep a list of complex medical terms and how we have described those in plain language, which we're constantly changing and updating as we go along. The review process for these is quite strict, and it builds in patient review as a fundamental part of the process. So once an EPAR summary has been written, it's first reviewed internally amongst our medical writer team, and then reviewed by those experts in EMA who have been working on the development of and guiding the development of the product. And then it goes to you, to the patient and consumer organisations, and we ask for your feedback. At the same time, we ask for feedback from the assessors on the committee, the scientific assessors who've looked at the medicine. And finally, we send it to the company for comments. Why do we ask you to review it? Well, because basically this is a document for patient and consumers. And so your input is absolutely invaluable. You can give us the concerns, the viewpoints that nobody else can offer. And for that reason, you get this summary without any of the source documents. We want you to have the same experience that somebody coming to it cold on the website would have. We ask you to look at that document to make sure that it's clear, to make sure that the language used is appropriate, to make sure it's of suitable quality. And things we particularly hope that you'll look out for are, is the language right? Is it overly complicated? Has it perhaps been simplified to the point where it's patronising? Are there unexplained scientific terms in there that you think really need an explanation? Equally, are there levels of explanation that you think are perhaps going too far? Particularly important, is there missing information? Are the steps clear, or is something that should be there just completely missing? Where we give numbers for the studies, are those clearly explained, or do you just find them confusing? And particularly, have we done a good job of explaining what the main benefits of the medicine are? And do you therefore understand why the committee chose to approve it? And we really welcome all comments. There is no such thing as a stupid comment. Everything is useful to us. So feel free to write what you think or feel. And we'll accept comments in a general email or attached as comment boxes in Word. That's particularly helpful, or as tracked changes in Word if you know how to use that. And they can be general comments. You can say, this section is rubbish, I don't understand this. But if they're specific, they're a lot easier for us to act on. So if you say, I think that word is misleading, that sentence is in the wrong place. That's a lot more helpful to us than saying this section isn't really working. We'll certainly consider suggestions, and we're happy to consider questions as well, because that sometimes sparks a realization that we've missed something important or got something not quite right. And is it worth doing? Yes, it certainly is. We estimate that about half of the comments we get from patient and consumer organisations lead to a change in the EPAS summary. And that is very much on a par with the comments we receive from the scientific assessors or from our colleagues in EMA. And it's certainly rather better than the strike rate for the companies. So many of the comments that you make will be implemented. They may not be implemented exactly as you've suggested, because we have to consider consistency with other documents and the agency's style guidance. But we will try to take them in. And one point that I should make is that quite often people will make comments perhaps which relate to the general structure or to the way definitions have been made, and we may not always be able to take those in straight away, but we do keep a note of them, and they do lead to changes further down the line as we update templates and definitions. So even if you don't see the comment you made in the final document, that doesn't mean that it won't lead to changes later on. So I thought I'd show you some examples of comments and responses. This is Pravafenix, which is a medicine for high blood cholesterol. And originally, we had a statement in the section on how it's used that said treatment should be stopped if an adequate response wasn't seen in 3 months. And the reviewer quite rightly pointed out, well, what does an adequate response mean? And they went on to suggest, also very rightly, that perhaps we should say that it was the doctor who was going to be assessing what the adequate response was. It wasn't the patient's responsibility to decide whether they had an adequate response or not. And the medical writer who got that comment thought it was a sensible and useful one. And as a result, the document was changed so that it now says the doctor should stop treatment if an adequate response is not seen within 3 months, which we hope is a little bit clearer. Here's another example. This is Halaven, which is a medicine for breast cancer. And this is the section in the EPAR summary which describes the side effects. And in this rather long list of intimidating sounding side effects, we have a mention of peripheral neuropathy, which was originally defined as damage to the nerves in the extremities. And the patient reviewer said, well, what does that mean in practical terms? What would the effect be on the patient? And asked us to clarify it, which was, again, a very helpful suggestion. So the definition for peripheral neuropathy was changed not only there, but as an ongoing thing in later documents. And now, where we have peripheral neuropathy, we explain it as damage to the nerves in the extremities, causing numbness, tingling, and prickling sensations. Here's a third example, Esbriet, which is a medicine for a particular type of lung disease. And here we were talking about the studies that were used to license Esbriet. And in those studies, the effect was measured by this thing called FVC, which is the maximum amount of air the patient can breathe out forcefully after taking a deep breath. And quite helpfully, the patient reviewer here pointed out that it would perhaps be useful to say that this measure goes down as the disease gets worse. And that's exactly what we did. So we said FVC is the maximum amount of air the patient can breathe out forcefully after taking in a deep breath, which decreases as the condition gets worse. And that therefore makes the explanation, which I haven't got on here, of what the effect of the drug was a little bit clearer. But here's an example of a comment that wasn't taken in, just to show you the other side of things. Jevtana, a medicine for prostate cancer. And this particular medicine is used in patients who'd previously been treated with another cancer medicine, docetaxel. The reviewer here suggested that perhaps we should say that it was being used in patients who'd been treated with this medicine but were no longer benefiting from it. But in fact, when we thought about this, although that is true, that's certainly one category of patients who would be eligible for this, there could be other reasons that they had to stop docetaxel. It might not be that their medicine was no longer working. It might have been that the side effects had just become intolerable. So rather than go into a very long explanation of what the justification would be, we decided just to leave that one as it was. So just in conclusion, my whistle-stop tour of the EPAR summary, the review by patients and consumers is an essential part of our process of writing and developing these things. The aims, the thing that we ask you to do include checking the clarity and the use of language of these documents. And what you give us is a unique perspective that results in a better document, for which we thank you, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Paul. This was very clear, thorough, and understandable. I would like to move to Nathalie's overview first before opening for discussion.
So again, just an overview of the reviews carried out this year and comparing them to the previous years. And as Paul mentioned, we send all the EPAS summaries out for review to the organisations. Next one. So you can see here, since 2007, slight increase and then relatively similar across the years. Again, there may be, these are figures up to date, so there may be a few more before the end of the year. And then in the next slide, this is showing the rate of response. So obviously last year was exceptional with 100%, but still 80% is very good response rate. And the next slide is showing you again high number of cancer products, again diabetes, neurological, and hematological as well, but relatively equal over the others. So there we go.
Thank you very much, Nathalie.